ladies and gentlemen, this is a very special episode of Poker Gauntlet. I bring you a one-off high-stakes 10k wait, no, 1k contestant. This is BenaBadBeat, editor insert screaming baby with Ben's face on it going, wah. Welcome, Ben. How's it going?
I'm all right, thank you. That was a very, very kind intro, and also a bit of a roasting as well, which I've come to know that YouTube channels seem to do this. I like it.
I've never forgotten the day I was cooking dinner and I had your video on and I looked down at the auto caption and it said, "Hi guys, it's BenaBadBeat," and I'm just always going to roll with it forever.
I really need to change the subtitle for this. Otherwise, actually, I mean, it's a thing. It's a meme now, so let's just keep it.
So we have 10 hands from 1k, I believe. And disclaimer, guys, if you've watched Gauntlet in the past, you will know that it's basically just a filter. But this is actually only semi-random. I've gone through and taken away all the boring stuff. There's lots of Ben bluffing, ostensibly punting, hero calling, bet calling the turn, and leading the river. Weird shit like this. This is going to be a great episode. Editor, roll that Gauntlet intro. So, are you ready to get into Poker Gauntlet? Are you ready for me to give you a score out of 10 on every hand? Yeah. Have you seen Gauntlet? Do you know how it works?
I've seen all of them. In fact, when I was just doing some cardio just now, I decided to watch another episode. So I've seen all of them now. I think I just want to ask that you don't go easy. You are harsh with the scoring. I'm obviously going to argue my case, given that other people are unable to argue their case in the Gauntlet. You kind of have this overarching, ruling, no rebuttal environment usually, so there may be some rebuttal, but also honestly, poker's been, notwithstanding hitting BBJs, poker's been going so incredibly terribly that it would actually be really, really nice to get like a new set of eyes and actually to kind of like show a bit more curiosity. I think when you're doing terribly, you kind of lose a bit of fire and a bit of curiosity for the game, and sometimes having another person look at those and kind of pick it apart from a non-biased perspective, I think it's really helpful. And just so everyone knows, I don't know which hands are going to be shown, so I'm feeling very exposed already. So let's see how this goes.
Yeah, this is going to be great. So it's been a bit of a testing time then in the road back to high stakes of late.
Yeah, it's road back to micros currently.
Road back to 5NL. Yeah. I mean, a lot of that is BBJs and stuff, though. I mean, in the modern climate, I think like us guys, old school guys, are kind of like, oh, we must have XBB per 100 pre-making money, but like the money is what matters, right? So, I mean, as long as you're doing okay after those, then that'll keep you going.
Whatever. It's just how it's been going.
Yeah. All right. So first hand we have Ace Queen offsuit, and this is a 1k hand. You can see there's two red chips there, guys, in the big blind. That is $10, and it's min open. This is kind of the standard these days. This is in fashion, and we're going for like the smaller linear kind of 3-bet here, right? I actually really like the small blind 3-bet being small and the big blind 3-bet being big. I'm assuming that's kind of what you're doing here.
Yeah, and also like you've got to be kind of cautious about hitting BBJ rake after you 3-bet and then C-bet to keep the pot under 30 big blinds. So that's like another factor. But generally speaking, I am 3-betting roughly this size versus minimum in a small blind anyway.
Right. Okay. So that actually adds up and makes a difference long term. Cool. Makes sense. Okay. We go on to a flop of King 7 Deuce. And we start with a small C-bet. I'm guessing you're just betting pretty much everything here.
Yeah, most hands, yeah, most of the time. But obviously, like under the gun is going to have kings and ace king, so we at least are being mindful that it's not like a board that we dominate.
Yeah, I think we'll do this as a back and forth rather than me just being like, this happens, it's terrible. Sure. 4.
We don't have to. You can go with it, and then at the end I can share my thoughts, because then it's actually unfiltered for you, which might be helpful.
Then it's actually like authentic Gauntlet. Okay, I think you're right.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you this one. Okay. I think that's how we're going to do it.
I will stop justifying myself.
You can justify yourself after. What I'll do is I'll award a provisional score, and then you will have a chance to appeal the score, and then we'll have a final score.
Sounds reasonable.
Okay, we have the Queen of Clubs. We don't actually have a lot of showdown value here, guys. People look at this spot and they're like, oh, ace queen high is still showdown value. Sometimes at micros and low stakes, it's really not. We're not going to realize much pot share here by checking. And if we do actually have the best hand, we're likely to face aggression at some point from all of the worst stuff in villain's range in this configuration anyway. So we go for the big bet here. I think the sizing is good. We're probably building around decent king x plus for the most part. Maybe a little bit of queens or something is the bottom. And the Queen of Clubs is going to reduce the combos of their continues. Unblocking spades seems like a high frequency barrel for sure. Maybe even a pure barrel if this is not the sort of hand that wants to check. And then fold to any aggression. The river is the 6 of clubs. And yeah, the bluffing scheme as I understand it for this river. Look at me already caveating and prefacing because I'm scared of the mighty BenaBadBeat. He's sitting there, guys, and I'm like, as I understand it, I've lost my authority. Washed. He's washed. Yeah, okay, it's fine. We can tear him apart. And we're on this river. The scheme here would be mainly bluffing with a club and giving up without a club for the most part. There's going to be some exceptions. There's going to be some cards we don't want to have. There's going to be some cards that we do want to have. We're going to want to have a club. We're probably going to want to avoid jacks and tens that are not clubs, I would imagine. So if we did barrel the turn with something like the queen jack of hearts or something, I would imagine that's more of a give up here. This hand's more of a bluff. Would we have any sizing other than all in? This is the next question. I certainly think the aces, ace king, probably still jamming at this SPR 100 big blinds deep. Maybe there's some like tiny block you could build here with if you really wanted to, but yeah, I'd imagine it's mostly all in. We do go all in. We get called by ace king. Because we got called by ace king and lost, we're going to have to give this hand a 2 out of... No, I'm just kidding. We're not results oriented here. I'm going to give this hand... I think it's just a normal hand. I think it's a well-played hand. I don't really have much critique. I think the river's probably a mandatory bluff. I'm going to give this hand a score based on difficulty, therefore. It's like you have performed some gymnastics maneuver and it's not super impressive because you didn't go for like high complexity, but you did execute it well. So I'm going to give you a 7 out of 10 to start this hand. Am I being harsh? If a 25-0 player played this hand, no, I would give them a 7.5. I would give them a 7.5, Ben. I'm giving you a 7.5. Do you want to appeal either on play or difficulty?
I would probably mark it down a bit more. I don't think this is that hard of a hand to play. I think it's quite easy to stumble upon the correct play with the Queen of Clubs. Mm-hmm. So I would give it a lower score for that reason. I know I've seen you give some scores for some hands that may arguably, allegedly, through the grapevine, should have been scored higher. So I think this one is a little bit a bit easier to play than some of those hands. So I think it should come down a bit. But what I would say is there's a couple things. I think flop and turn are super standard, actually. I think it's the river that's the kind of the interesting point. And whilst we do block some of the flushes, we don't block the most valuable flushes, which is obviously going to be the nut flushes. Ace 4, Ace 5, Ace 10, Ace Jack, Ace Queen. And I have looked at this in the sim. So you are meant to check fold my combo on the river.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, you're not allowed to bluff this, but you also are incorporating block sizes, not with this combo, but with ace king and aces. Ace king and aces no club are too thin to shove now, apparently, in theory. So you are looking to build a block, literally just around those combos, really. So quite interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's just like early configuration, just things play tighter than you would think. So aces and ace king with no club blocking. I guess as well, like when we are barreling the turn, we're shifting so much towards stuff that have 1 club or 2 clubs that like a lot of our turn bluffing range is going to be the 1 club ace queen rather than like the no club ace queen, I suppose. So like giving up some of it just to avoid over bluffing. I think would you agree that it's really easy, like once you start knowing how to bluff, the kind of next logical thing that happens to you is that you just become an over bluffing maniac without realizing. I feel like that's the progression. Under bluffing to realizing how to bluff to just being way out of control for most people.
Definitely. And my thought process here was I don't have any ace. It was very simple, actually. I don't have any ace jack offsuit. So I don't have those combos to choose from. Right. So I can just bluff ace queen with a club. But then there's just not enough of a wealth of value for me to be justifying that. That's pretty much the long and short of it. Yeah,
especially if you're blocking all of your aces and ace king, that allows a really low bluff to value tolerance for that sizing. And then for the jam, you've taken most of the value combos out of it. And therefore this hand then has to give up. Super tricky stuff, super unreasonable by the solver. I'd say the solver's being a bit of a dick there, but okay, I'm going to mark you down. because one, you've now informed me that your river play isn't solver approved, and two, okay, I think if a 25NL player had done this, maybe I'm being like a little bit biased here, because if a 25NL player does this, I'm like, well done, you didn't just like randomly check fold the turn or something like that. But yeah, okay, let's mark it down to a 6.
Sounds reasonable.
6, yeah, let's go for 6. And 2 pocket jacks in the hijack. We go for the open. We are called by the cutoff. Flop is 993.
This hand. Enjoy.
Looking forward to this. All right, checking range, I would imagine here, and facing this, I think we can certainly raise. I think this hand would raise pretty frequently. This guy did size up a bit. Was this a recreational player? Because it's a little bit of a weird sizing, or was, I guess it's not that weird.
Yeah, can only be described as a VIP.
Okay. In that case, I think I'm just always raising this hand. We do raise. We get min clicked back. What kind of VIP? Just before I start like saying stuff generically.
Yeah, very, very loose aggressive. And also it's very important to note that I have 3-bet, like 4-bet and check raised versus this player like a number of times. So dynamic wise, we were kind of tangling a bit, which is obviously important.
Yeah. So with that read, I'm less inclined to go into the shell of like, oh no, I hope he doesn't have a 9. I want to minimize what I lose when he has a 9, and I'm more like hungry against the rest of his range now. I think the best play here is probably to reopen again just while our hand is so good, and to give a bit more rope as well. So I don't like jam and I don't really like call. I think I would just click this back. It does depend like how crazy we think he is though, and how scared we are becoming of 9x and what we think of that line. But I think I'm leaning towards like a 31 big blind click back call off sort of plan against this particular player. 4 of clubs on the turn, check. And now I think, I mean, the thing with these players is they can get pretty mergy in these spots. Like I've seen a fair amount of 10s, 8s, flush draw. We do have the jack of diamonds here, but I'm less inclined to care about a GTO consideration. I think I'm all in at this SPR just to make sure the rest does go in against that range. Although again, disclaimer, if he's absolutely wild and might have like king deuce of hearts here, then call is really mandatory in this situation, so it's a little bit player dependent. We do call, and easy call on the river as played given the read. So this hand, I think I do prefer reopening on flop just because of like the merginess that most people have here. However, if this is an insane, absolute, like drooling monster of a player, then I don't mind your line. I'm going to go ahead and award a provisional score here of, I'm going to award a 6 because I think like I like most of it, but I don't think it's that difficult either to just not fold against this player, and I think I would have preferred to click back on the flop. What are your thoughts? Would you like to appeal?
No, I think that's a good score. I think, again, it's not too difficult to play. I think that there may be some people that would fold somewhere. Because this is a 3-bet on the flop and then a barrel and then a shove, and maybe people get kind of a bit scared. I think the main thing about this hand is it's dynamic based. And my understanding was this player was way, way, way out of line, but I still don't think that necessarily makes my hand a call on the turn still. In my own mind in game, I decided to make the very loose distinction that when I have the jack of diamonds, that they're going to have more absolute nothing hands. But I did assume that hand was probably going to be a hand like pocket 8s or something like that, and versus obviously like we can't know, versus like more of a kind of a merged range, which I do actually agree with you. Probably getting in more money somewhere is probably just going to be the right play.
When I watch your videos, like this is where I'm going to be like brutally honest about what I think of you as a human being, as a person, your moral worth, like all of that. I learn a lot about the way you think about the game, and I often just stick them on like when I'm done with the day of work, and I really enjoy them. If there's one area where sometimes I find myself, and like, you know, I think you're a better player than me across the board. I think you understand the game better, and you definitely click the right buttons much more accurately than I would if I played these games. Disclaimer. However, if there was a place where I find myself disagreeing the most, it's probably when you say things like, I decided to use the jack of diamonds as a sort of decision-making factor. I feel like that's great when we just don't have like an exploit. We're not in that like highly exploitative domain. I think when we are against a player that we know and have history with, it's highly unlikely that the jack of diamonds would be enough of a swing, you know, to be the relevant deciding factor rather than some other factor like the way he plays, how merged his range is, something like that. So that might be a bit of a cop-out. That might be you falling back on your habit that you would use against a strong player, because you play against a lot of good regs in this pool, of course, and then you're doing that sometimes when there's a more valuable decision-making factor available, perhaps. What do you think of that criticism?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you, actually. And I think it's a bit of a crutch. And particularly when things are going poorly, it's much easier to rely on more wishy-washy crutches, because that feels safe and it gives you a bit of ground. And yeah, I think I can definitely be guilty of that for sure. Yeah, for sure.
Yep, I do it myself also, so it's kind of familiar to me. All right, next hand. We've got 6 and 6 so far. This is an average to good start for BenaBadBeat here on the channel.
Showing people the result of the last hand, by the way, and people are going to need to see that.
Yeah, we'll see it at the end of the video, guys. You'll have to watch the rest of the video to see. Yeah, okay, let's have a look. I predict the villain has the king 10 off suit. I was close, man. Wow.
You're very close.
All right, 6, 7 of clubs. On the button, we call a 3-bet, which is kind of whatever. We face 1/3. I have to confess, this is not an area of my game where I can talk too much as to what the races are here. I think there wouldn't be that many of them. There'd probably be some against range, but I don't think it would be this hand.
Yeah.
Villain calls. Yep, we face 3rd pot on the turn, and I guess we just have a... I think we just have a pure continue. Raising feels like reopening here feels bad, like we're inviting jam a lot of the time. Villain will be incentivized to fast play value out of position at this SPR. If we raise, we have a 5-out draw. We're facing 1/3 pot. You don't fold 1/3 pot to a 5-out draw. And the river is the 8 of hearts, and villain goes for another block bet. Yeah, this is the sort of line that we don't see at 25NL. Like, the 25NL contestants are not coming up against players good enough to go block on this turn, which is obviously a thing, and then block on this river, which is a thing as well. So this is this a reg, just before I make my verdict?
Yeah, to be honest with you, this is an unusual line for me to see as well.
Right, okay.
Because this would suggest very, very heavily that this player is splitting turn and river.
Yep.
Which not many people are doing, if I'm honest with you. Most people are playing one-sizing approaches on the flop and turn.
Got you.
So yeah.
Especially on like king, queen, 6-3 flush draw, where it feels like the big bet would be a bit more prevalent. I think on like some ace high boards, there's a lot of block on the turn. Flush turns is a lot of block, and people might simplify to that. This feels very much like a B62 kind of like turn barrel spot. Okay, anyway. God, what a nightmare. I mean, it feels to me like this is probably, if we're trying to play balanced against this, like we're trying to play theoretically optimally against this, we probably have to call, because we have worse hands than this in our range. We have like Jack 10 of hearts, Ace Jack, Diamond Diamond. We have hands that we just can't call, 4-5 suited. We have a lot of that like automatic folding stuff. We unblock bluffs, I think, almost fully. That said, it would be so much better if we just had a king or a queen, but then again, we have an MDF of 80% against this sizing. So it feels like with an MDF of 80% that we're calling. Now, the next question is like, what's our value jamming range? It's probably something like king, jack plus would be my guess here, somewhere around there. And
I'd go king, jack plus for sure.
Yeah, and with 6-7, I don't know, what properties do we want when we're bluff jamming this node? What do we actually want to be doing? I'm not sure. We probably want to be blocking ace. Like, what is his value? What is his bet call range here? Man, I'm really struggling with this spot. I'm just going to go ahead.
It's a very weird hand.
So we fold the river with this hand. If I was critiquing this in the game of a 25NL player or something, like someone I felt I had more of that authority over, I think I would say this is good at those stakes, because I think this is like ridiculously underbluffed, like at lower stakes. Like I think the small probe in the river here is very, very underbluffed as a continuous act of aggression, less so when it happens in like a scattered way. I'm going to go ahead though, and I'm still predicting that your hand is probably a pure call in theory, and therefore I'm going to give this hand a 5.5. I mean, you've not done a lot wrong, but you couldn't really do a lot wrong. And I think the river is probably meant to be a call, but I may be wrong about that. Would you like to appeal a 5.5? And if so, why?
No, I think that's reasonable. I do think that there are a few other factors going in. I did consider turn raise. And I decided I would rather raise this hand than a hand like pocket fours or fives, just because we just have naturally more equity. Turn feels kind of, I think this is where it becomes a bit murky, because I believe, again, this player is splitting. I know this player, and I believe that this player is going to be imbalanced in this spot. And I think this is going to be an intuitive mergy value much more than it's going to be an unintuitive, like, cheap bluff. But yeah, I can definitely see that. I don't think the fold on the river that doesn't make the fold on the river necessarily good or very bad. I think it's probably good, but objectively, you're right. The price is unreal.
Yeah. So do you think this combo will probably like call in GTO terms then, would you guess?
Yeah, or shove maybe.
Yeah. But then again, like I like it when I see you playing more exploitatively, because I think you're a great player, and I think you've got this like fantastic sense of like where people are in ranges, what parts of ranges are doing, like all of that mechanics. And then when I see you then say, I have a read that I think this is under bluffed, I went with it and I stuck with it and I didn't lean on that crutch of like what my blocker was. I'm actually like happy about it as a coach. Not that I'm your coach, but if I was, I'd be super happy about that. And therefore, I actually want to upgrade you for making that fold. Now you've told me the read. I think you played this hand really well in that case, and I want to give you a 7 now. Would you like to accept that score?
Sure, I'll take it. I'll take the extra points. I need them.
Would you like to beat the shit out of yourself more and reduce your score to a 5, Ben? No, you're happy with a 7.
We'll see what the other hands are going to bring first.
All right. 5-4 hearts. We open the button. We get 3-bet by the small blind, and we call. We love about the suited connector action. It goes check and check. 10-9-8. People range checking here. Like, probably. Like, it's some... I don't know. It's not that lower board, actually. It's not that lower board. Yeah, if it was like 7-6-5, maybe they are. Okay, so they're kind of splitting here. Right, so this strikes me as, one, a very difficult spot for any human, any mortal, to protect their checking range adequately in. Unless they're, like, range checking this turn, which, like, maybe they are. 2, these spots are really weird and probably quite good for our range now. Like, the fact that Villain has a monopoly in ace, king, ace, queen, aces, kings, queens seems very bad for them now at this juncture. Meanwhile, we would have bet a lot of our straight draws and sets and stuff on the flop, but not all of that. We have 6s here. We have, like, higher density 6s, probably higher density 7s, probably a decent amount of Jack X still, I would think. I think we have an advantage here, like range versus range, probably, given this action sequence. And when that's the case, and we unblock a lot of big cards and big pairs, we probably can start bluffing just with unblockers alone. And I think third pot's probably the right sizing, because people could be range checking and polarizing. I love this turn bet. I think this turn bet's great. I think this would never happen at 25NL. This is like where the student never ever bluffs. They're like, I need more equity. And it's like, well, think about the favorability of the spot. If it's good for your range, then, you know, probably you don't. And we end up on the 7 of clubs river. Villain checks again. We completely unblock the call fold range here. That said, okay, what is Villain's call range here? I don't think it's a jack very often, although it might be sometimes, but I think a jack is incredibly likely to depart from the road here, either by betting flop, check raising turn, or betting turn. There's kind of like 3 ways they can like actually end up not playing it that way with Jack X. Sets and stuff I think are also really unlikely. Yeah, I think I'm just pure bluffing this particular combo and blocking like the ace queen spade over pair, like call fold range. This looks good. I don't think we have very many boats because we're just betting flop at such a high frequency with them. I think our main value region is Jack X, so I'd pick a sizing usually that's in line with that. 2/3 pot, 3/4 pot. Love it. I love this hand. I'm giving this hand a 9. I'm giving this hand the best score that's ever happened on Gauntlet. History editor, do something dramatic.
I'm pretty sure the one I just watched, you gave someone a 9.5, and then you were like, oh no, I can't give them a 9.5. I have to give them an 8.5 or an 8 or something.
Yes, it wasn't a final.
The ring. You dangled the carrot and then you took it away.
That's what it's all about, a carrot corner. Is it the carrot or the stick? This is very much the carrot. And we get called by Jack 10. Okay, so he did actually manage to bolster his checking range here. All right, what are your thoughts here? Do you want to appeal?
Yeah, I think the line is good in theory. And I did check this one, and it is good in theory, but I did share it around, and the verdict was that people believe that this is going to be underfolded for a couple of reasons. The first and most important reason is that this player is extraordinarily honest and on the nitty side. So you probably just clean up most of the fold equity on the turn.
Yeah.
And when they do call the turn, this is probably going to be an underrepresented fold spot, mainly for this specific player.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a video come out the other day where I check raised flop, barreled turn on 4 straight, and just gave up river when my turn barrel was called, because I was like, this is just ridiculously underfolded. Same concept. Okay, then I'm marking.
Necessarily, but it's hard to say whether or not I still think that this is a mandatory bluff, and like when you're looking at a bluffing combo and it's making, I don't know, however many big blinds, and then you're going like, well, it's underfolded. It's like it needs to be extraordinarily underfolded for this not to be profitable, or for it to be so unprofitable that we just need to absolutely forego the entire pot every single time.
Yeah, so it just loves this combo as a bluff. It loves the unblocker effect so much that it would just take more than that it would take a hell of a lot of underfolding. Okay, well, yeah, I was going to mark you down a bit. I'm going to leave you with a 9, though, because I kind of agree. Sure. This just looks really automatic to me. Like, it would take a lot for me to deviate here as well. All right, guys. Best ever Gauntlet score. BenaBadBeat, 9 out of 10. He's kind of cheating, though, because he's played poker professionally at high stakes for, like, a long time. So just remember that. Pocket Queens, we go for the 3-bet, 943. We're going to go use big bet here, B75, a little bit deeper. Love the sizing. I think this is great. Usually a bet. You can probably check raise. I think we have a probably very close to a pure bet with this combo. With Queen of Spades, I'm not sure whether checking's okay. I think if we had like Queen of Clubs, Queen of Diamonds, we would always bet. But I think usually just B60ing here is also my play. And the river is the 5 of Spades. What does villain have here flush-wise? Well, he has boats here. He has 10s, he has 9s, he has some 4s and 3s, he has some 6, 7 of spades straight flush. He has nut flush. This is like, this can't be a shove. This has to be like a block of some description now. What happens if we check and villain bets? It feels to me like that is extremely underbluffed. Like it's going to be really, really difficult for them to make us close to indifferent here with their shove range, unless they're just very, very good and they're turning quite high up stuff into bluffs, like 8 spade or something. So my feeling is that I prefer some kind of small block here, or a check. And if I did check, I'd probably just check fold. We do check call though, and I don't know anything about the villain. Before I give you a score, what do you know about the villain, just so I know what's going on?
At the time, I didn't have reads on the villain. I have since heard reads that maybe I shouldn't share yet.
Right, those are also irrelevant to your decision since you didn't know at the time.
Exactly. I had no reads on this player. They're real named. I have them reg tagged. Do with that what you will. I don't have unfortunately.
That's fine. Just give the audience their name, address, sort code, and account number, and we'll just leave it at that, right? We won't need to say anymore. Okay, so I'm going to say that this is a mistake based on the fact that I think it's deeply counterintuitive to bluff enough here. Like, they have to bluff a lot here. Our required equity is obviously like 30% or something, so 3/10 of their range needs to be a bluff here for us to be indifferent, and I feel like it's just less of their range than that's a bluff. I get that we have the Queen of Spades, and yeah, we do block Queen Jack of Diamonds though, which isn't great, so the Queen of Diamonds is probably like the worst other queen to have with it, but I think this is splitting hairs. I think, like, okay, I'm not a high stakes player, as the audience knows, but I wonder if this is one of the reads that carries up all the way through the stakes, because I can tell you for sure that you lose heavily here if you do this at like lower stakes. I don't know if if that read is like equally strong at 1k NL. So I'm going to award this hand a 3 out of 10. And the reason I'm going to go so low is that the flop and turn are just obvious, and the river I think is costly if I'm right. But let me give you the chance to appeal.
No, I'm not going to appeal. I think this is really, really poorly played hand. I think it's such a clear river block. I think this is one of, if not, Is it the lowest EV card in the entire deck? Probably not quite. It's close, right? It's very close. 5/4 gets there, flushes get there. And I think blocking the river would have been the play. And I've since learned that this player, sorry, I'll finish that thought. I think blocking river is probably the play and block decide. And then when I do check, I don't mind the call. I just think that's probably my worst river option. When I should just block, because that's very clearly the best option. And then since then, I heard that this is a 43 1-1 saw flop. Never gonna, because I was like, oh well, people are gonna find ace king here. They're gonna find 5-6. Like that's what I would do in position. But I keep needing to remind myself at 1K that I'm not the same as every other player, and every player is different, and you can't project your experience into every player. And that's I've definitely been guilty of that recently.
Yeah, I think projection is such a common leak that my students have as well, where it's like when they're running bad, there's this like kind of link between how much we think about you'll be aware of this, right? Because I'm sure in your, I don't know how much you talk about like your other line of work or past lines of work and stuff, but you're into like psychology and stuff like that, right? Therapy and stuff.
Yeah.
When people are very, very in their own head, like they're very cerebral and sort of like just worrying a lot about the contents of their own psyche. I feel like that often falls in sync with bad things happening to people and like traumatic experiences and things like that. So when you're running really, really badly and you're just like, you can't win a pot and you're just relying on bad beat jackpots to survive a terrible run, you're probably more in your own head and thinking more about what you would do. And there's probably more main character syndrome going on there than there would be ordinarily as well, right? So
absolutely. And for what it's worth, I did tank in this spot, and I was in my mind like, this is going to be a good bluff catcher, and it may well be in theory. I haven't looked at the sim actually, but like that's by the by. I think I should have blocked the river, and that's why this score is fair.
Cool. All right, well, let's do this in 2 parts because I want to build a bit of drama here. We've got so far 6, 6, 7, 9, and 3, so that is 12, 19 plus 12, 31 out of 50, which is that's a solid like 60 something percent, like just over 60%. It's a good start. I don't know if it'll be enough to beat all of the other 1KNL players that we'll have on in the next 28 years. It might be. But let's pause it there, guys. If you want to keep watching Carrot Corner stuff, you know where to go. It's carrotcorner.com. If it's still September, the September bundle is still out. There's not long left of that. You get grade 1 of the Carrot Poker School and cash injection for just $2.99. Do pick up before the end of the month because it's about to expire. And Ben and I will be back with the next 5 hands of this special exclusive guest gauntlet episode very soon. Stay tuned. Subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss it. Ben, good luck on part 2.
Thank you.
Just kidding, guys. Of course, I didn't forget to show the results. I was just trolling you. Maybe. Let's see what Villain had. Did we win somehow? No, we ran into 9s. Seems legit. Alright, guys. See you for part 2.